Hi, everyone. Um, Welcome back to Business as a Magical Practice. So happy that you're here with us today. I actually have a very special guest. I have the numerology chick, Natalie Olson. So,
Woo!
yeah, hi, Natalie.
Hi, so happy to be here, Sam.
So happy to have you here. And so, Natalie, if you do not know her, Natalie Olson is your numerologist and philosopher friend with a passion for decoding the mystery of life. She's here to help you unearth your numbers or your superpowers hidden in your birth name and birth date so you can create the life you really want. For over a decade, Nat has been coaching individuals in her private numerology practice. She's become the secret weapon for best-selling authors, Wall Street financiers, and CEOs of multi-million dollar companies. She has also been featured a featured columnist for the largest online numerology and spiritual community in the world, Numerologist.com, with over 2 million trusted viewers and readers. And in 2019, Nat launched 2 numerology programs with the Numerologist.com team to help to reach more people with this life-changing ancient wisdom. Woo! Man, what a
Woo!
juicy bio.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I want to hear the stories of all of these people who are tapping into your wisdom and
Mm.
numerology's wisdom. So I told you guys on Instagram, I already told Natalie that I pretty much know nothing about numerology. So this is going to be a super beginner conversation. But she already told me it's fine. I hope you guys are too.
Oh, and sorry, and you're breaking up a little bit. Am I breaking up over here?
No, you sound good.
Okay,
Shoot.
good. Okay, good.
Was that during the entire thing?
No, it's okay. It was just a little bit during the intro, but it might be good on your end. It just might
Okay.
be my end.
No,
Yeah.
you sound good. So
Okay.
let's hope it's all good on my end. So let's start off with the most basic of questions, which is, what is numerology anyways?
I love that we're covering the basics, because here's the thing: the basics actually is where the magic is.
Mm,
That's where the power is. So, okay, what is numerology? Numerology is an ancient tradition. Some say 2,500 years old, some people say 10,000 years old. But it's based on the premise that numbers are the fingerprints of God.
mm.
Numbers are the fingerprints of a divine intelligence behind existence, and that the numbers that are then derived from your birth name and birth date, that they describe how you were designed. How you were designed to be happy, successful, and confident. And so, based on your own sort of unique to you algorithm of numbers, we're able to ascertain your purpose, your greatest gifts, your attraction factor, and your deepest needs and desires.
So who discovered this?
Well, that's okay. So that's going down a rabbit hole. What you'll hear most numerologists say is that it was the Greek mathematician Pythagoras.
Mm,
So in geometry or math class, we probably all learned the Pythagorean theorem. So it was from Pythagoras. He was this super cool sort of guru guy in ancient Greece who was obsessed with numbers, and he observed that numbers weren't just quantities. They were things that you could see in nature, right? They had qualities. And this is what trips me out. Like, this is what makes me so enchanted by numerology, is that you could go to a distant galaxy somewhere and you're still going to see these fundamental numbers or forces in existence no matter where you go. So, like, the number one is a circle. It's like an individual contained thing, right? No matter where you go in the universe, everything is made up of circles. In fact, biologists say that life cannot exist without a container, without an individual unit. The number two is the force that like brings things together and holds things together. So it's what holds atoms together. It's also that when you lock eyes with somebody across the room, and you yearn for relationship or connection, that's the fundamental force of the two. So it goes on and on. So back to your question of like who came up with this. Pythagoras was sort of the one that made it something that was a little bit more, you could say, mainstream. But numbers are not human inventions, and the qualities that they possess are not either. They're fundamental forces in the universe, and in numerology, what we do is we decode those same fundamental forces that are all around us in the physical world, and we decode those forces that you're made up of.
Okay. So I'm fairly familiar with astrology, and I can kind of wrap my mind around like what are these are the planets in our solar system, and and I'm only bringing this up because it's like, okay, birth date, like that you think of astrology, or I think of astrology, and okay, there's planets in the sky, and each of them have
Mhm.
different energies associated with them and different like movements and interactions with each other. So how did like the meanings behind the numbers and like the process of adding numbers together come to pass? Like, how did that meaning come about?
Where we're using the birth date and the birth name.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, some say that it really got its heyday, like where it really started to develop momentum in the 1950s, where where the first numerology books started to pop up and show up. But they based it on the ancient work of Pythagoras. And so the idea was this: the idea is that numbers are fundamental forces in the universe,
Hmm.
and that our birth date is no accident and our birth name is no accident. So that these patterns exist everywhere. And so then, if we took the moment that we're born, we're able to ascertain exactly in that moment, that date of when we're born, we add it down to a single digit, that it's not a coincidence that we're able to decode your purpose in that moment, your mission when you were born, right? So, very similar to astrology. Like in that moment, all of the different fundamental forces in the universe were in a particular pattern, and that pattern affects you,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And then the same with the name. So there's a lot of ancient cultures that believe that the name giving process is a sacred one. Oh gosh, I forgot what the quote was. Um, but it was a quote of a famous author, and he said, there's no sound more beautiful than the sound of your own name.
Hmm.
And so the same concept is there, is that that when you were given that name, the person that gave your name was tapping into the energetic vibration of who you are.
Hmm.
And that they, and that happened with both of my daughters, is that I just knew what their name was. I didn't even do the numbers. It was just like, we knew this was them.
Oh.
And yeah. And so in the Pythagorean system, each letter has a number. And this is ancient. In ancient Greece, alpha was always the number one, the alpha of the pack. So letters are numerical, and they have a numerical sequence as well, which again, we believe is no coincidence. So then we take your name, and the numbers from your name have their own special meaning, and they have their own placements as well. So it's that ancient concept of the microcosm, macrocosm, right? It's that it is, everything's interconnected, and that it's no coincidence that your name is Sam. It's no coincidence that you were born on this particular date. And the accuracy of this was so incredibly uncanny that I had to abandon my traditional career to step into this work. I never ever thought that I was going to be a numerologist. I didn't want to be a numerologist.
What was your traditional career?
In my early 20s, I was a nutritionist.
Okay.
And the reason that I got into this was because um, I was a nutritionist. I had my own private practice. I was working with people that had eating disorders or eating disordered behavior. And I was doing workshops and seminars, and I was walking my talk. I love telling the story because it's the ultimate cosmic joke. Um, I was just like, I was the person drinking herbal tea when my friends were drinking champagne on New Year's Eve. I still remember that moment. And it wasn't too long after that I woke up really sick.
Mm.
And I had basically from the onset of my symptoms to 6 months later, I was bedridden, and they knew something was physically wrong. I had the white blood cell count of a chemo patient.
Oh my God.
Um, yeah, I was like, it was really, really bad. But the crazy thing was, every person I went to, every specialist, every doctor was like, there's no reason for you to be unhealthy. You should be the healthiest person, because I was doing everything right. And they couldn't find any factor,
Mm.
right? Like that I had cancer, or that I had, you know, some kind of disease of some kind. They just knew that my immune system wasn't functioning. And so they sent me home, and they're like, you're just going to have to figure out how to cope with being sort of this bedridden individual. And it was in that moment that, because the only thing that I could do at the time was read,
Mm.
I opened up this old book that I had stored away. I bought it when I was like 15, 16, and it was a numerology book.
Mm.
And it was by Matthew Goodwin, who was this MIT graduate. There's the doggos.
There's the dog. There's a warning beforehand. Please continue. I'm muting myself.
There was Matthew Goodwin was an MIT graduate, really smart guy who was in love with numbers, and but in this book he details how this tradition could predict a person's behavior and personality in the most uh, magical ways. So I did my numbers, and when I did my numbers, I remember sitting there, and I learned more about why I was sick in that 10, 15 minutes than I had learned in that 6 months of trying to fast and detox and take special supplements. And I knew it in that moment. What my numbers told me was that I was actually doing everything in the opposite way of what I was designed to do and be. And I thought, well, I have nothing to lose at this point, And so I started to actually apply the wisdom from my numbers, my inner design, my spiritual DNA. I started to actually apply them, and I started getting better. And I got better so fast that I couldn't ignore it, and I really wanted to, because I did not want to tell people that I was a numerologist. I didn't want to tell my Italian father, you
Classic.
know, like, oh my gosh, you should have heard the conversation between my dad and I when I told him what I was doing. But what started happening then is I started doing the numbers of friends and family. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, my father was a double nine, a 9 life path 9 expression number. My whole life, which is the 9 is known as the humanitarian and the activist. My dad was a political activist my whole life. He would take me to these protests in Berkeley, and we would lay our bodies out on Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. I always wondered, like, why my dad was this way. Like, it was so annoying when I was a teenager, but I literally read it there. And it was incredible. And then I did the numbers of my sister, and it was the same thing. 6 life path 6 expression number, the caretaker, the mother, the caregiver. She had spent her whole life trying to create a stable and safe home and create a stable and safe family. So I just did all of these numbers, and then obviously my own transformation. And I went, wow. Um, I thought I was spiritual before. Like I believed in general that there must be some sort of higher power, but it was where I actually was starting to rub shoulders with something. I felt like there is a divine order, a divine intelligence behind existence, and that numbers are one of the languages that this divinity uses or has seeded to help us understand ourselves.
Yeah, you see it so many times that people find different modalities to pretty
Mhm.
much interpret the divine, and it's like it's because we're all psychic, and there's
Mhm.
different archetypal ways of actually having those conversations, whether it's numbers or like straight
Yes.
up archetypes or zodiac, which is archetypes. But I love hearing that. But I want to rewind just a little bit because I want to like I'm assuming you were reading this book and it wasn't like Number 5 needs to eat these types of foods. Like, what was it that was like, "Oh, I need," was it you were misaligned in your life path that big indicator, or you weren't, like, what was the actual specifics around that you learned that you're like, "Oh shit, I need to change things
Y-
now?"
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'll fill you in on the details. So, one of the first numbers I worked on in myself, and it's actually the easiest number to calculate, is my life path number. So, your life path number is derived from your birth date, and you add your birth date down until you get a single digit. And this tells you what your purpose is. It's basically the longest timing cycle that you go through in your life. So, it's your purpose. Mine was the number 8. And I remember it was a moment where I was sitting there and I was going, my mouth dropped open, because the 8 is here to become a leader, authority, a CEO, right? In essence, it's about leadership, and in particular, leadership in business. But the deeper spiritual undertones of this is that our challenge and our mission is around being empowered and taking our power back. At that time in my life, I was under the thumb of a couple of different authority figures, which is a common theme for 8. So every single life path has their own sort of their own dragons to slay, I guess you could say. And this was one of mine. And so, actually, at the time, um, to pay off my nutrition college tuition, I was working in sales, and it was a wonderful, wonderful job in a lot of ways. But my boss at the time was that exactly the opposite energy of the 8, meaning he would tell me I was never going to make it on my own, that I should never go out and pursue my own path. And yeah, and so I read this and I went, wow. And it wasn't just in that moment in my life, it was my whole life. My whole life, and it's very typical for 8s. The thematic is everyone else is more powerful and more capable than I am. And I'm going to give my power away to any leader, any authority that might come in my way. Give my power away, meaning fight them, try to convince them, or believe them, right? Believe that they have more power over my destiny and my future than myself. So, one of the things that I started to do was I started to actually just come to terms with the fact that this was my purpose, this was my mission, and finally giving myself permission to do the thing that I had been wanting to do for 4 years, which was to completely go out on my own and and start my own business and do my own thing, but that wasn't really the point. The point was the spiritual component of realizing that this was a part of my lesson and a part of my journey, was to be the CEO of my own business, my own life.
That's epic. So, is this, because we heard in your bio that you've worked with a lot of business owners. Is this something where you're using it primarily just to get to know yourself, or is it also something that you're using in prediction, or you're using in business decisions? What does that actually look like?
um, Primarily, the root of this work is, and the power of this work is knowing yourself. And so when people come and see, this is what's really interesting, is that I've worked with really, really successful people that are, the top of their game, doing incredible things, um, people from all walks of life. But the common denominator is that people can be really successful from the outside. But if they're not honoring the way that they were designed, they're still experiencing stress, suffering, um, feeling not happy. And so, in regards to business and success, the key here is that we have to honor how we were designed, and that when we do that, we are able to just like click into the slipstream of our genius and and live the life that we know that we were meant to live. In regards to prediction and things like that, this work, this is something that a lot of people get confused about because there's a lot of numerologists out there that do use this work to maybe try to do predictions or say this is the right time to make a decision and this is not, and that kind of thing. And I don't ascribe to those beliefs. And the reason why is because I've been doing this for about a decade now, and the point of power, the people that have seen the most incredible results are the people that have primarily worked on the numbers in their core chart. So not timing cycles, not predictive elements, but basically bringing the power back to themselves and to knowing how they were designed, learning how to honor it and advocate for it in real life. And regardless of what timing cycle you're going through or what's going on in the world as a whole, these individuals that do that, it's almost like they've got this like secret power on their side. It's where that locus of control is on the inside, and they're creating their own reality as they go on, as they go along. I think that's what one interpretation of your core chart could be, is that this is your own like unique algorithm that's describing how you create your reality or how you best rise into success, is being yourself. And I'll say one last thing about business or numerology and business. I actually, in all of the people that I've worked with who are struggling and feeling confident in their industry or attracting customers or clients or struggling with finance, it always comes down to the same thing. Surprisingly enough, it always comes down to typically we are not honoring our unique selves. And it's so easy to do because, if you have a girlfriend who's kicking butt and she's like making the dough or she's making miracles happen, we all have the propensity to mirror ourselves after that person, like we think if she's doing it and she's kicking butt, then if I do it the way she's doing it, it's going to happen for me too. Or we look at role models, or we look at, people online or social media, and we think, then if I do that, then it'll all work out. Every single person that I've talked to, when we go into their numbers, we basically discover that in this process of attempting to be impactful and to help people and to have this beautiful business, that somewhere along the way, they were denying or diminishing some fundamental part of who they are. And that when we unveil that, it gives them that rocket fuel of confidence to kind of come out of hiding and be who they really are.
So what if you look up your numbers and you don't resonate with what you read? For example,
Tell me.
Just looked at did the quick Google calculator, numerology calculator search, and it said I think I'm a 5 as my like major number. The
life path.
Yes, the life path, and it's like you're meant to travel and blah blah blah. I hate traveling. I really just like totally like I would love just staying home all the time and like being in my little like cozy space. So I'm like, what if it doesn't resonate?
That's such a great question. I actually just did a YouTube video on this because I was getting so many DMs from people on this. And because usually this is what happens. So we have like mainly let's say five core numbers in our chart.
Mm-hmm.
And usually what happens is like when I get a client, I do sort of a diagnostic, and we will look at which numbers are you comfortable with and which ones are you like that reaction, right? And then depending on where the position is, it sort of tells us what's going on. So I would love to know what your other numbers are. But let me just first answer this question in general.
I was like, while you were talking, I was like, I went to the numerologist.com and had this epic video walkthrough of, have you seen that on their website?
Yes.
I'm like, this is so cool.
Yes.
I remember my first one was 5 and my like the internal, my soul urge one 6, I believe.
Was it 6? Okay.
There's one in the middle. I was like, I know there's like a second one. I'm gonna try and look it up really quick.
Try to look it up, and I'll continue and just share some of the general stuff with your listeners, and then I want to know your expression number. I want to know your expression number, big time. Okay, so why don't we resonate with our numbers? So there's two answers to this that are going to blow your mind, because when I learned that I was an 8 life path, I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way. Because remember, I was just saying that I was actually experiencing the opposite of that. So there's something in numerology called the law of polarity. And basically, what it says is that the only way for us to become the masters of something is by experiencing the opposite of it. So what's fascinating is that one of the ways that you can assess whether you have been conditioned out of your purpose, for instance, in the life path, one of the ways to assess that is to actually go back to when you were 7 to 13 years old. Like if you think about that timeline of your life, you go back to that time in your life and you think about what you enjoyed doing. Okay. And usually what happens is when you go back to that time in your life and you think about what you enjoyed doing or what you dreamed of doing, like who you wanted to be when you grew up, usually it's directly in alignment with your life path number. And what happens is we get conditioned out of it. And this is where we go into deep coaching, like deep transformation coaching work. Because like for me as an 8 life path, I was conditioned out of my 8 life path because I had a I love him, but I had a very authoritarian father. And so anytime that instinct showed up, right? Anytime that showed up, it was squashed. And so, so that's one of the reasons is that we're conditioned out of certain numbers in our chart because we ran into people or situations or experiences where it was seen as a burden, an inconvenience, or it was seen as unsafe. And I can tell you, my 5 life path daughter, she's 18 years old. We've talked so much about this. When she was little, like on the jungle gym, because when you read about the 5 life path, it's like the adventure, the freedom seeker. They love taking risks. It's like that kind of thing. When it's in the position of the life path, that's not always true. It's talking about who you're asked to become. So what that means is that 5s are oftentimes put in situations over and over and over again, where they have to be adaptable, where they have to adjust to instability, where there's almost a sense of cautiousness and fear. And so I remember when my daughter was really young, there were other kids on that jungle gym that were climbing high, that were like going to all these on the jungle gym. And Cammie was like shaking in fear. She didn't want to do it. She was not a risk taker. In fact, it was the opposite. She was so it was almost like she was so wise. She understood what could happen, right? She understood what could happen if she took a risk. And so we've talked, but the crazy thing is when I talk to her, she might not want to, you might not want to travel, but I could venture to guess you're a rebel. I could venture to guess that you are unconventional, that you have a desire to pursue unconventional lifestyle, thoughts, careers, professions that are very much outside of the norm from what would be the standard, right? You're not a 4 life path. Like a 4 life path is like, I want to be in an institution. I want to work a 9 to 5. 5s are like,
Oh, yeah. No, I've never worked a 9 to 5 job ever in my life because I knew I couldn't. And there was a period in my life, I think it was between 18 and like 25 where I lived and moved 20 times or something, just like twice a year I was moving sort of thing, even though it was in the same town. So I guess that counts as travel maybe.
It does. And the travel thing, the spiritual undertone of what numerologists are talking about when they say travel is that you basically, you thrive. You are offered up opportunities and success, and you gain confidence from pushing the envelope and constantly being on the cutting edge of change, right? You're like 5s are possibilitarians. They're always they're the ones that show up and they're like, yeah, but what if? Oh, but what if? What about this? What about that? There's always that progressive, open-minded mentality. And so, And then because like if you have a 6 souls urge, that dampens it.
Okay,
Dampen
I
isn't the
actually
right
looked
word.
them up again. I was wrong. It was 6 expression, 4 soul urge.
Okay. Okay. So get
You're like,
this.
this makes sense. Okay.
Yes. So this is really cool for your listeners too, because when sometimes people look this stuff up, they can get really, really confused. And it's actually one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing these interviews.
Mm,
Um, is when you go into a numerology book or you get a report, when they talk about your life path number, they're almost talking about it as if you've already been embodying your mission, right?
mm,
So the traits that are there, freedom seeking, love, travel, life of the party, those are things that will only show up should you be honoring your mission. So
mm,
your life path number is your mission. It isn't who you are. It's your mission, it's your lessons, it's your challenges that you face, it's who the universe asks you to become. And you will be plopped over and over again into situations where you have to adapt, where you
mm,
have to be a change maker, where you have to be the rebel, the revolutionary that stirs things up to help free yourself and others from being confined. Okay. So the life path isn't who you are, it's your mission. Your expression number is more of who you are. And that's derived from your birth name, right? And so your expression number, the 6, is so different from the 5, you
I know
know?
you're just like, wait, she's supposed to be in an institution.
Yeah. Well, and so the 6 expression is known as the caregiver or the healer. So you could think of it as like the archetypal mama, like the way the 6 is written. It's a pregnant woman, you know.
Mm,
So it means that when you were born, the greatest gifts that you were given were being loving, compassionate, a natural counselor, and you have a deep, deep desire to establish beauty and harmony in your environment. So it's harder for 6s when you have a 6 in your chart. Not harder, it's you're not going to see that really stereotypical archetype of the adventurer,
mhm,
right? The 6th expression number in you is you, because you have such a sense of duty to help heal and mend and comfort those in need. You're going to need to have a good home base, because it's very difficult to do that if you do not have some semblance of control, right? So the 6th expression number is more of who you are, um, and the soul's urge is talking about a deep fundamental need that you have to be successful.
mm,
And what's really interesting about the soul's urge is it's oftentimes repressed.
mm.
This is one of my favorite numbers to talk about lately.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because it's usually like in the first part of life, it's like we've always known this about ourselves that we need this, but most people that I talk to report that there was somebody or some situation that made them deny or want to stuff down this need. So with the 4 souls urge, you have a deep need for stability,
Mm,
like deep, deep need for stability, predictability, practicality, um, groundedness,
mhm,
and truth. And like I was just talking to a girlfriend of mine that has a 4 souls urge the other day, and this is an example of it. There was a friend of hers who, her and her boyfriend, these 2 friends, they are living in a van and they're traveling the world.
mhm,
And my girlfriend with the 4 souls urge said, I could never do that. She's like, I could never do that, because she's like, I need to have some sense of stability, some structure. I kind of need to know what to expect, because when I do, I'm a freaking rock star.
mm.
Like when I've got some structure, I'm a rock star. It's almost like the universe designed me this way. And I'm like, uh-huh. Yeah, because it's
Have
almost
you
like the
not been
universe is,
listening to me?
yes, yes. Because we hadn't talked a lot about that number. When she was saying this to me, I was laughing because, but she was owning it and it was really beautiful. But she's like, yeah, no, that's not me. Like I couldn't be that kind of girlfriend, that wife. I couldn't do it. I
Mm,
would not be a good girlfriend or a good wife. I wouldn't be a good practitioner
mhm,
if that was my, if that was something that I wasn't honoring about myself. And even in her marriage, it was something that in the baby beginnings of her marriage, she wasn't honoring. And then she got to this point where she's like, I need to know that X, Y, and Z are going to be taken care of. I need to know that the finances, like I need to know that we have a plan,
mhm,
because if I've got that covered, then I can really bloom and I can thrive. So, yeah, so all of this to say that all of these numbers in our confidence code is what I call it, the core numbers of
You
our
said there were
chart.
5. Can you just go through what the 5 are?
Yes, so there's the life path,
Mhm.
the expression number, the soul's urge or heart's desire number,
Mm.
the personality number, and then there is the day number, your birthday number. So that's like the day that you were born. Like I
What
was born
does
on
birthday
September.
mean?
It's so the life path and birthday number are kind of linked because
Mhm.
those are from your birth date, and so they're talking more about the things that you're going to face, um, the lessons and the mission that you're going to face in your life. So, what day were you born? What was the day of the month?
13.
13.
So it's a
Okay.
4.
Oh my God,
We
4.
got another
Uh
4.
huh. Uh-huh. Okay. So cool. Okay. Okay. So basically, this is like it's telling us that one of the ways that you are going to embrace this mission of being this freedom seeker, this revolutionary in your industry, is actually via the 4.
Mm.
So it's that you are going to be. It adds a tone of. Um, how do I want to say this? Because I don't know much about you, but um, there is a tone of your mission that is about being practical. It's about being grounded. It's
Mhm.
not just about believing something because somebody tells you. It's about wanting to acquire the tools, the practical, real life tools that produce results versus just ethereal and esoteric, or just ideas, if that makes sense. But because it's a 13, there's this other thing, which is that sometimes you might feel like on your journey, you face obstacles, like you feel like you might face more obstacles than others, um, like boulders, right? It's like, oh, a boulder, there's another boulder. And that actually this is a gift. It's actually a gift because you are going to help other people. um, you should know the number 5 is the number of promotion too. It's,
Like like promotion like going up or promotion like selling?
selling.
Okay. I like
Yeah, so anyway, that was, I just thought of that. It's because there's so many facets. But anyway, what this 13-4 means is that the universe might place on your path things that seem to be obstacles, to embracing this mission of being this freedom seeking adventurer. But those obstacles are actually helping you extract fundamental tools that you need to help others free themselves from um, being trapped, being confined, being stuck in limitation. Because that's what the 5 is all about. It's this mission of freeing yourself and others from drudgery and stepping into um, making life a grand adventure, basically.
That's epic. How fun. um oh, man, it's like it's so funny because I'm like I want to keep have her keep going, but this is not the best use of listeners' times unless they just want to get to know me. So let us move on from me. And how and I think that's so cool and it brings a lot of different shades and facets to getting to know yourself and the direction you're going. And I know that right now a lot of people are awakening in these times and people losing their jobs and being like, well, I guess this is an indicator to actually pursue my dreams or like, I want something super
Yes.
meaningful, but I don't exactly know what that looks like. So it seems like this could be a really great tool in those instances and also in making people who are already successful go in more feel like they're more in ease and flow. Is that
Mm,
right?
yes. Yes.
Okay, beautiful. And can you please give us some transformational client examples?
Oh
If
yeah.
you're allowed, you can
Yeah.
make them anonymous.
Yeah, gosh, okay. I'm just thinking, I want to think of some recent ones. So I was just working with a woman yesterday. She is, oh God, I'm just kind of in love with her because she's a phenomenal executive coach. And she's been working with me for about 6 months. and working on her confidence code. She was already incredibly successful, but was feeling a little bit stuck. And one of the things that we do is we do a diagnostic. So I look at a person's chart and, like, I share each of these different aspects of who they are. And one of the numbers in her chart was not getting love. She wasn't accepting this part of who she was, which for her was the number three expression number. And so we worked a lot on this three expression number, which is this. It means that she has this gift of being this, like, joyful child, this imaginative, sparkly, joyful child, massive creativity and these kinds of things. But really, the fundamental factor is joy. So we focused on feeding this part of herself, honoring this part of herself in a bigger and better way. And we just talked yesterday, and she's like, couldn't believe that she said this. She said, "So, Nat, what do you do when you've manifested everything on your vision board?"
Mm.
Like, oh my God. I was laughing. I was like,
Celebrate.
yeah, celebrate. I was like, well, you put new stuff on. And she's like, yeah, that's what I thought. But she, I think a lot of us that are in our spiritual journey, we've had moments where we've felt the magic of the universe. We've felt the magic of synchronicity. We've felt like, oh my gosh, this unexplainable thing happened. But it's hard to sometimes recreate that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to make that feel like a flow process. But what she really saw was that by simply honoring the way that she was designed, by being herself, giving herself permission to be that, she was able to intentionally create that experience of manifesting the things that she desired and the things that she wanted, to do it intentionally versus sort of by accident,
Yeah.
So that was just one recent that happened yesterday. It was amazing to just hear her say, my gosh, I'm seeing the correlation between being myself and doing the inner work to honor these aspects of myself, and then seeing these things happen. It's really cool.
There's nothing more magnetic than knowing yourself, learning about yourself, and then actually, like, liking yourself. Not just loving yourself, but liking yourself. So I love that.
That's well said. That is like, that's the secret. I mean, it's so simple that I know we're like, what? Really? Isn't there like a 20-step process to manifestation? And it's honestly this. It's that knowing yourself and honoring yourself. And I think with a lot of my clients, the success stories, most of us stay stuck in the knowing ourselves step, like we're like lifelong learners, and it's so cool. Like, I'm an Enneagram 1 and I'm this and that, we know all the things. But very few of us really invest that time and that energy in honoring ourselves and advocating for the truth of who we are in day-to-day life, like in our marriages, our relationships, our friendships, in our industry, in our career. And that's really where all of these magical things happen. I had a client who, I think she was earning at the time $80,000 a year, and she just did this work of like honoring these numbers. She was an 8 life path, so she did this inner work, doing the homework of basically honoring her 8 life path mission, starting to take some action in her business and career. And she landed a promotion where she got, I think it was a $200,000 a year. It was a huge leap.
Huge
It was a huge
jump.
leap
How
in her
exciting.
income. It was so cool. And that's not the point. Like that, right? Like, that's not the point. The point was that it was by being who she was and honoring the authenticity of who she was that she attracted that. And because if she had landed that 200,000 by being somebody that she wasn't, she would have been miserable and she would have stayed stuck.
Yeah.
So, there's so many stories like that where, because the point is for us to love our lives. It's a pretty short time that we have here.
Yeah. Can you share more? I want to keep hearing stories.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I'll tell you a personal story
Okay.
because this is one of my favorites. Can I tell you a love story?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. This is a magic. Oh, this is one of my favorite ones. So, um, so I went through a really, really, painful divorce. I had been married for 13 years, went through a painful divorce, and I was like convinced that I was never going to open myself up ever again. Because at that time, um, I have a two hearts desire number or a two souls urge in my chart, which is our soul's urge is massively important in relationships because it's telling us this very precious need that we have inside, and that if we don't get it, that we're never going to feel loved. And so the two hearts desire, two souls urge for me is this deep need for a best friend connection. Not everybody needs that. Like my daughter is like, please, she does not want that at all. And that's the 5 life path a little bit, but she wants a lot of space. She doesn't want a companion best friend all the time, but I do. Like, that's how I am. Anyways, so have this really, really painful divorce and breakup. But I look at my chart and I'm like, okay, if I'm going to have a successful relationship, I know that it is going to be reliant upon me being who I am, me honoring the way that I was designed, and to quit diminishing myself or letting other people diminish me or make who I am wrong, right? So I sit down and I write out what I know I need and what I know I want. And a lot of these things, again, are based on my numbers, right? So I write all of these things down and I start dating this guy. And a friend of mine was getting married. I invite him to the wedding. It was super hip. It was a hippy dippy trippy wedding. It was like, this guy was a cowboy. I was like, I don't know if he's going to vibe. And so we go to this wedding. And one of the things that they had us do is we took these little river rocks and we were supposed to write down on the river rock the greatest gift that we wanted to give the couple, the bride and the groom. And so at the end of the ceremony, we were then asked to stand in a single file line and then put that rock at their feet, at the bride and groom's feet, speak it to the whole room, and then walk away. And I'm like, my date is not going to do this. Like, he's not going to do this. But lo and behold, he gets up. He walks up there, 6'1" cowboy, like totally, like everybody's wearing flowy clothes and like there's hippie music playing. And I was just like, it's like, I can't believe he's still here. And he walks up to my friend Ben and he looks him straight in the eyes. And he says, I give you the gift of honor. And he puts it down at Ben's feet and he walks away. And I swear to God, like, I almost started crying because one of the things that I put on my list that I absolutely needed to be a healthy partner, a healthy wife, to be loved, was I needed to be with somebody that was honorable, right? True to his word. And I wrote down all of these things that I never before in my life had given myself permission to honor, because I didn't, at that time when I was 19 and I first got married, I didn't know myself. And I didn't know that it was okay to want things that are different than other people. I didn't know that that was okay. And so that man ended up becoming my husband. And we now have this precious little 2-year-old. And I'm phenomenally happy. I never thought that I would have a best friend for life. I didn't think that it was possible. And that's one of my favorite stories to share because honestly, we will know these things about ourselves in private. I had said this to girlfriends of mine for a long time, that I had wanted this kind of quality. I wanted this experience, but actually writing it down and actively honoring it, like coming to terms with it ourselves, is where the transformation happens, and it's where the miracles occur. And I don't think I would have manifested him if it wasn't for this work, because there still would have been that part of me that's like,
No, I don't need that.
I don't need that. I'm an independent woman, and I am.
Mm.
And my inner design has always been that I really thrive with somebody that shares the value of deep, deep best friend partnership.
Hmm. There's so much magic in like actually allowing yourself to want what you want.
Isn't there? It's just wow. Yeah.
I love your love story. Thank you for sharing
You're
that.
welcome. You're
I hope you had a
welcome.
cowboy wedding. A
Yes.
super
Yeah.
hippie cowboy wedding.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I could just go down that rabbit hole because love is like compatibility is so fascinating, and
Mm,
knowing his numbers has been so incredibly helpful. And um, it's such a tool to use to fall in love with ourselves and fall in love with other people, but to make sure that we're advocating for our best lives.
mhm,
That's key.
I love that. Thank you.
Oh,
So, something that came up for me is just like a random thing.
I love it.
You said that you got divorced after 13 years, and I actually know like at least 5 other women who got divorced 13 years into their marriage. And I'm
Mm.
now like, wait, we're talking about numbers right now. Is this a thing?
Well, I know, like, have you ever heard of the 7-year itch?
No.
So in some psychological research, well, there's something called the 7-year itch, where if you've been with or married to somebody for 7 years, it's usually where some issues show up. And
It's
I
the
think,
Saturn cycle
oh, I didn't know that. So I
7
don't know a
years,
lot
yeah.
of,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay. And so in numerology, the 7 is about, it's basically about like deeper meaning and diving deep into truth. And so usually what happens at that 7-year itch is basically it's like a reinvention point. It's kind of like, if you haven't been investing true depth and true deeper meaning, if you as a couple are not um, elevating your partnership through something that's bigger and greater than you, you might struggle. And so it's really good to know that that's what the 7-year itch is usually about. Is it's usually about just like a crisis of meaning, and you need to kind of come back together and focus on values. Um, and the 13, usually what happens with the 13 is that it's around obstacles. Now, obstacles can strengthen a marriage, but usually what it will be is like, if this is just a random guess, but my random guess is that for a lot of these women in their marriages, there were big, like life off, like loss of a job, death of a loved one, disease, like stuff like that that shows up. And that if the marriage it wasn't on a solid foundation, right, then the 13 will just smoke out that lack of stability. Thank God, right? Because thank God, because you don't want to keep on going on something that is on a shoddy or diluted foundation. And so it's not that the 13 causes a divorce, but it's just that it's an opportunity to see whether you have a good foundation.
Dig it.
Yes,
Brought
yes.
you your cowboy, so I wanna see
It
pictures.
did.
I do,
I'll
now I
send
really
you.
wanna see pictures.
Oh, he's so hot. I mean, of course I'm biased, but
Good, you
we
think
met we met rock climbing, and I'll never forget it. I'll never forget, because I saw him the moment it was a rock climbing gym, and I saw him the moment that he walked in. And oh, it's just a moment I'll never
she
forget.
locked in.
Oh, oh, but I love love. I love love. And but it's another thing to, it's another really important area of fulfillment in our lives. And if we are not honoring who we are, it's really, really difficult to feel loved, or to feel that we're in a healthy partnership.
Yeah, well, I see it so much like I do business, where business is such a playground for going through these spiritual evolutions and journeys and learning yourself and learning how to interact with life and other people. And I think there's so much to go through within a relationship where we have just so much agency to affect the other person and like bring out the best or the worst in other people and like
It is. It's you know what it is that if we how do I want to say this? Um, One of the other, I just did a video on this too. One of the other things that is a common misconception, like when I was dating, I was so scared of failing again and being hurt again that I remember when I would date somebody, I would like try to look up their zodiac sign. And I wanted to see, like, I was, oh God, but I wanted to see, like, as long as I get all my ducks in a row, I'll be safe. Right. So as long as they're the perfect zodiac sign or the perfect numerology numbers, um, I'm not going to get hurt. And to your point, the point, like, you can get the most phenomenal person with you. But if you don't know yourself and you're not advocating for yourself in the baby beginnings of it, you're going to run into really big problems. So um, I manifested a guy when I was dating that had, according to traditional numerology, had all the right numbers. Like, I was so scared that I even wrote out, I want a guy with this life path, this expression number. Like, it was ridiculous. And I got him. The first guy that I dated after had all the exact same numbers I wrote down. It blew my mind. I called my girlfriend. I'm like, oh my God, he's here. Like, I was just like so excited. It turned out, and he was lovely. Like, he was wonderful. But because I had written down those things of what I needed to be honored, what I needed to be healthy. I remember on our third date, it was like, oh my gosh, he doesn't even check the first one off the list. Like, the number one thing that I need, being true to your word, being honorable, he could not give me. And but he had all the right numbers, right? So I really, what I'm trying to get the word out that I've coached so many people who have quote unquote incompatible numbers, who have the most incredible marriages and relationships. I've coached people that have compatible numbers, and it's Jerry Springer. That kind of stuff doesn't matter. Really, the point of power is in what we're talked about today. It's in knowing yourself and honoring yourself, especially in the baby beginning, so that person that you're interacting with, they know exactly what you want and need, and that they then can assess whether they can provide that. And that's really where the magic is, you know?
And so hard for women usually, because we usually have like less of an like even like a hard attachment to our ego, or like attachment to our identity, because we're like brought up to be people pleasers essentially.
Yes.
So then when
Yes.
you get into a relationship, like, how many women do you know, like, I've definitely gone through this so many times, but how many women do you know who like just like suddenly they spend all their time with their boyfriend and their boyfriend's friends? They stop having their own hobbies and relationships and start doing all the things that the dude or the other person in the relationship are into, just because. And then suddenly, I've heard that like there's a 2-year thing too in a relationship where that's like a common thing, because uh, you're suddenly like, I'm in this union, but am I like actually an individual in this thing? And do I actually like myself? Am I myself at all in this thing?
That's so good. And you know what's interesting is one of the things I would say numerologically speaking would be that if it's like the 2-year itch, you know, if it's like that 2-year and things come up, it's usually an indicator that you are not receiving the fundamental nutrients that you need. And usually we don't receive the things that we need, not necessarily because the person can't give it. That's the second step. But the first step is because we don't know, and we don't know it, and we don't communicate it, right? Because the 2 is also like a really important number around kind of actually being able to receive it, like being able to somebody's giving that thing to us that we can just receive it. So yeah, that would be kind of a cool course. It's like, you know, like when you have a relationship problem, like what year it's in, like what it might mean. That'd be kind of a cool course. But,
there should be an infographic on that.
Yes, there should.
Well, and like, how many women are isn't it like, it's a classic thing that women are so upset that their partner doesn't give them the perfect gift when they could have just told them what they wanted, because they were already clear.
I did that 4 years ago to Nick. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I still remember it. And he was he was so confused. I was like, I don't need anything for my birthday. Like, I'm fine. And then he didn't give me anything for my birthday. Well, he got me flowers, which was beautiful. But I remember it was a comical moment.
You were so disappointed, weren't you?
Yes, I was. It was so funny. And that's the thing. That's the thing that's so important, is to know these things, honor these things, and then in relationship be like crystal clear communicating them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've given my husband Amazon lists.
I did that for Christmas.
Anything from here, I would love it.
Yes. That's so awesome, Sam. That's great.
No, I've heard stories of women who are like putting things on their refrigerator of like, this is where it's from. Here's the number to call. Like, brilliant. Like, let's set everyone up in our life for success, please.
I am so here for that. I'm so here for that. I'm going to do that.
Okay, so I actually didn't ask you before we started if right now was if there was a hard stop or if we have like a little bit of flex
We
around.
have a little flex.
Okay,
We have a little
cool.
flex.
Well, okay. So this podcast is called Business is a Magical Practice, where we don't only use our magical and spiritual practices to boost our business, but also our business as a tool for soul evolution. Can you tell us how you use your business for your own spiritual development?
Oh, yeah. Wow, wow, wow. That's a really good question. Um, yeah. So, well, first of all, accountability is the first thing that comes to mind. So, a big brand value, like a big business value that I have, is accountability. Um, uh, Meaning that walking my talk and applying my own work. Um, I think that's a really important part of our spiritual maturity and spiritual evolution, because there's knowledge and wisdom and information, but if we're not applying it, it doesn't have the same bang for our buck. um, so I would say that talking with my clients every day forces me to be an accountable person. It forces me to instead of get like hypnotized by the muggle world or the physical world, um, to constantly come back to my spiritual practice, to come back to my numbers, um, and to be actively embodying the things that I talk about. Um, hmm. I think also what I love about owning my own business is that the sky's the limit, right? And that the only thing that's holding me back from reaching more people, or meeting bigger goals, or hitting bigger revenue numbers, is myself. And so I love that part of it too, is pushing the envelope of my own mindset to see what more I can accomplish, what cool creative things that I can do, what things I can do to get outside my comfort zone. I think that those are really important in spiritual evolution, in our own spiritual evolution, is taking responsibility for our results and for the potential of where we could go, where we could be.
Do you have
Mm.
any next level projects or results that you're shooting your arrow at right now
Oh,
that you're willing
yeah.
to
Well,
share?
yeah. Well, okay. So there's one that's been in flux. So I've been really blessed because my friends over at numerologist.com, like that team they're such an amazing company. They're amazing. They give me as a contributor like creative control, and we've made some amazing products together. I'm so grateful for them. Um, I've been working though on my own product, my own information product, and and it's sort of different and it's unusual. So it's not something that would be like their list would probably be interested in, and so that's definitely exciting, but scary, so that's something that's kind of up my sleeve, and creatively being able to say, okay, this is something I'm going for, so I'm going to block time out and not put clients into those slots. I'm going to block time out to actually do this. So that's like it's an interesting thing to run your own business and to be like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to invest the time, the energy, the resources in creating this new thing, because I think that it can really help people. And I think that um, it can take things to the next level. So that's my next plan.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Well, one final question before I ask you how we can go deeper with you. What have been your favorite recent purchases for your business and for pleasure?
Yeah, that's a really good. My favorite purchases for my business. Um, and then for pleasure. Hmm. Well, always my favorite thing is getting coaching from other coaches. So making that purchase or investment. Does that count?
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my favorite things. Is I notice that when I do that, my skill set improves and I'm more balanced and I do my work a lot better. Um, so uh, I think that that's a big one. That's probably one of my most recent favorite purchases um, for my business. And then for pleasure, well, I don't know if this counts, but but I think it does. I think it does because I'm wiring the money today. So my husband and I have had this dream of uh, living at the ocean. You probably understand this because you're in Maui, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. So he grew up on Kodiak in Alaska, and I grew up some of my time on a sailboat with my dad in the Bay Area around San Francisco. So anyway, we've always had this passion, and so just things have happened that a move has become possible, and so I'm going to be wiring money today to rent this beautiful house in the San Juan Islands, which is like just these islands off the coast of Seattle, basically.
Mhm.
Um, and that's where we're gonna go. And that's definitely like a purchase for, it feels like for pleasure. I mean, it's like, you know, where you visualize yourself living that new life and being in that new place. And
Mhm.
it's been on my vision board for a long time and
Oh, how
it's
exciting.
actually happening. So yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. So I've been to Orchid or like on a ferry around
Orcas.
Orcas Island. Is
Mhm.
that around there?
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna be doing San Juan Island, like which is so Orcas is like it's like a big one, and then San
Mhm.
Juan Island is I think it's the second biggest one.
Okay,
Um,
but it's in like that same area.
Same area, right
So
there.
cold.
Yes. Nick wanted to go back to Alaska. I was like, no, we have to find a happy medium. I can't do Alaska. But it's known those islands are, I forgot what it's called, but they actually don't get rain. So it's like, there's like this little spot, you know, like Seattle is known as
Yeah.
like a lot of rain, but the islands for some reason, just because of the way that the topography is it's sort of in, I forgot what it's called, the shadow, or it's something where
Mhm.
they don't get the rain. So I'm excited about that.
Yay, I'm excited for you. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so where can people find you online? How can people work with you on different levels? Tell us all the things.
Yeah, so my website is thenumerologychick.com. And I also am over on Instagram, and my handle is numerologychick. So people can find me over there. So I've got so people who are on a budget, I have free resources. So I've got a podcast where I just upload forecasts for each month, numerology forecasts for each month. On Instagram, I provide a lot of free content. I have a YouTube channel as well, where I upload one video every Friday morning where you can learn about your numbers, you can learn about numerology, and dive deep down the rabbit hole with me over there. So those are all just like free resources for people. And then if you go to my website and you go to the Work With Me page, there are links to book a one-on-one session with me where you can learn about the main numbers in your confidence code. And really the bulk of my work with my clients are the long-term programs. So I have like a 1 month and an 8 week program where we go into every single number in your chart and we give you homework. So you go out there in the world, you honor it, you kick butt, and you see the miracles happen from being yourself.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you so, so, so much. This was so fun. And thank you everyone for listening. Do you have any final wisdom or things to share that you want to leave us on?
Oh, gosh. Just that there's nothing wrong with you. And that when you learn about your numerology chart, you'll understand that the things that you thought were weird or burdensome about you are actually what make you special.
Love it.